Hello everyone, that's tuning in today's second video. So we've already had a look at the Japanese model for the next 3 months. That takes us from April through to June. Very interesting update, and you can find the video here on the homepage. Just scroll down a bit, underneath link ads. All 3 months are looking quite variable, lots of different weather patterns going on. And June looks pretty decent if you want a warm, dry start to the summer. So I'll let you have a look at that and see what you think. This video is going to be looking at the next week to 10 days. It's going to start off looking at the central England temperature for March, which is really high at the moment. So I'll get on with that for you right now. This is where we currently stand with the CET from Hadley, provisional up to yesterday, 22nd of March. We stand at 8.1, which is an anomaly of 2.8 degrees above average. Now, whether we're going to finish up with a CET around or above 8 degrees, it's very hard to say. We're just on the borderline between that and coming in somewhere in the 7s, I think. So we're going to see this tick down a little bit more over the weekend. We get some quite cold nights coming up over the weekend. But next week, it's actually going to get warmer again. So we may finish up very close around where we are now, actually around 8.0, 8.1. But there's usually a downwards correction at the end of the month. They normally take off a 0.2, 0.3 of a degree at the end when they divvy up all the numbers. So it might be we just come out under 8 degrees, but it certainly has been a very, very mild, even quite warm March. Now, the last time we had a March that came out at or above 8 degrees Celsius wasn't all that long ago, actually. It was in 2012 when we came out at 8.3. And then before that, we've got to go back to 1997 this year, just here. This is the CET from Hadley, by the way. Every month from every year back to 1659 is listed at this page, the central England temperature. Very useful temperature series because it's the oldest continuous temperature series anywhere in the world, actually. There's nowhere else that has a temperature series that goes right way back to 1659. Of course, the further back you go, the more unreliable it gets, but nevertheless, it's still pretty useful for seeing how temperature is changing, not just over sort of yearly and decadal periods like most temperature series that we look at, but actually this shows how temperature is changing over centuries. So quite a useful temperature series. So 2012 was the last time we came out at at or above 8 degrees in March. Before that, we go back to 1997, which came out at 8.4. Now, interestingly, these 2 years were very different with the weather that followed. So in 2012, actually April 2012 was colder than the March before it, which is quite unusual to get April colder than March, because of course we're in a rapidly warming time of year around this time of the year. So normally April is significantly warmer than March, and that was a warm March anyway that we had in 2012. So maybe not that surprising, but nevertheless, April in 2012 comes out colder than March, and then the summer was a bit of a disaster, really. It was a very cool, very wet summer, especially June and July. Which were very disappointing indeed. 1997 was the complete opposite. So April 1997 was very warm. It was 9.0 central temperature, and it actually was warmer than the March before it. That was a warm March, and April was even warmer. And then the summer, although it was a bit of a dodgy start, in May and June, the summer got very, very warm, and we had a really hot August in 1997. So I suppose that just proves the point that the weather you get this time of the year really has no bearing on what the rest of the spring and the rest of summer is going to be like. The actual March central England temperature record was back in 1957, this year just here, when we came out at 9.2 degrees, so about a degree warmer than where we are right now. That was a very, very warm March in 1957. It holds the all-time March CET record. And obviously we're not going to get anywhere near that for March 2017. So the CET record from 1957, one of the older CET records, that is perfectly safe. We're not going to beat that. And then also had a very warm March in 1938, which had almost the CET record at 9.1, just 0.1 of a degree cooler than 1957. So, and again, those years are quite different in terms of what happens afterwards. So, April 1938, that comes out colder, significantly so, than the March before it, and the summer of 1938 was pretty disappointing. If we go back to 1957, which holds the all-time March record, what happened that year is that, so we had that record-breakingly warm March in 1957, then April was a very warm month, actually. It was a little bit cooler than the March before it, but even so, at 8.9, that's a significantly warmer than average April. However, the summer again was fairly disappointing, particularly in August, which was quite a cool and wettish month. June 1957, interestingly, was quite warm, but it was a front-loaded summer, started off quite warm, and then it got pretty poor. But it just proves the point, really, that the weather we get now in March has no bearing on what's going to happen in the summer. So either way, if you want a cool summer and a wet summer, if you want a hot summer, weather we've got going on right now has no real bearing on that. Right, let's get on with the weather for next week to 10 days. We've got 500 millibar high anomaly flow charts here. The ECMWF is on the top, and the GFS, we'll have a look at that in a moment, is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 80,000 feet is an area in the absolute high pressure, low pressure, being moved around by jet stream running above. Orange and red on these charts extrapolates to high pressure, and blue extrapolates to low pressure. So the ECMWF is placing a ridge down to the south and the east of the country as we're going through to the week to 10 day time frame period. And this takes into the start of April, take us to the 2nd of April, by the way. Bit of an Atlantic flow, but it's not overly unsettled. So the flow is coming in off the Atlantic, coming from the central part of the Atlantic. It is a very mild flow. The GFS is a little bit more unsettled compared to the ECM. So this is the GFS. And we see we've got this area below average heights to our west. We've got a ridge still to the south, and the ridge to the east is a bit further away. So this is more unsettled, more of an Atlantic flow, a little bit more influence from the jet stream. That looks like it could be quite an unsettled start to April. Would be mild though. Both of the models are indicating a mild end to March, start to April. These are the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles. Next couple of weeks, the red line here is 30-year temperature average. We're still a little bit on the cool side now, but over weekend into next week, those upper air temperatures are going significantly milder than average. It will take a while to get down onto the surface, so over the weekend, the nights are going to be quite cold, which will pull, as I was saying, pull down central England temperature a little bit more. But then next week, the nights will warm up and the days are going to be quite mild as well. Have a little bit of a drop in temperature around the 1st of April there, and then we see the temperatures recovering through the first week of April. Precipitation shows lots of dry weather really for most of the remainder of the month, but by the time you get through to the start of April, it's turning more unsettled. And it looks like we've got a bit of a drier trend returning, actually, through the first week of April. So we might get a more unsettled interlude, let's say from around the 30th of March to the 2nd of April, and then perhaps back to drier conditions again through the first week of April. I don't think it's going to take us very long to find our way back to high pressure. That seems to be the way things are just at the moment, have been for quite some time. Temperature anomaly, perhaps a little bit surprisingly, for the next week, this is the 22nd of March to 30th of April, is coming out a little bit cooler than average there. But remember, that's being skewed a little bit by the cold nights we've got coming up over weekend. As we get through to next week, I think we will see these charts trending increasingly onto the mild side. And also precipitation anomalies for the next week. Again, 22nd of March to the 30th look significantly drier than average. So lots of dry and fairly pleasant conditions coming up. In America, we've lost all of those cold temperatures that we had last week, all of the cold and snow. That's going, and we're back to generally above average temperatures, although it is colder out in the west with the temperature anomaly for the next week. Precipitation still looks very wet out in the west. We've broken the drought across California and those southwestern parts of the states, and this continues for the next week. More wet weather coming in from off the Pacific Ocean. So this is how the generic chart's looking. This GFS for Monday, still lots of influence from high pressure there. Notice the flow and the air is coming in from the south and southeast, so that looks significantly milder, if not warmer than average. Into the middle of next week, a little bit more influence from the Atlantic, probably still mostly dry in the southeast, but it is turning more unsettled with some rain in the north and the west. And then through the second half of next week, it turns more definitively unsettled with the GFS. We saw it on the height anomaly flow chart. Around the turn of the month, it does look more unsettled there, with low pressure coming in from off the Atlantic. That takes us to day 10, which is Sunday, 2nd of April, when the Azores high is trying to throw up a ridge, but still in an unsettled type flow. However, it doesn't take very long for we're back to high pressure, so by the end of this run of the GFS, Saturday the 8th of April, yes, we're back to high pressure, quite a big area of high pressure once again. That is the way things have been really since the end of last summer, so around August, September, we started to see these weather patterns. They've continued through the autumn, through the winter, they're going on into the spring, which is that whilst, yes, we do still get unsettled interludes, very quickly we're getting back continuously to high pressure. And if that was to continue into the summer, we would expect quite a warm summer, to be honest. This is the ECWF finally. Again, Mesmer Ridge to start next week. Lots of dry, fine and increasingly mild air. I think we'll be pushing up the temperatures probably to around 16, 17 or 18 degrees through the early part of next week. Go through to second half next week. Again, it's turning a little bit more unsettled out to the north and west, but still on the height anomaly flow chart, more influence from the ridge close to the south and the east. Means that into second half of next week, we're still hanging on to mostly dry conditions in the southeast, but it is more unsettled out to the north and the west. However, by the time we go through to the turn of the month, this takes us to Saturday the 1st of April, it's turning unsettled across all parts of the country. That's how we finish up on day 10, which is Sunday 2nd of April, and it does look quite unsettled there with low pressure to our north and east. However, we've still got quite a big ridge down across Spain and Portugal, quite an influence from the Azores. I would suspect if we could run on another day or two beyond this, we will find the ridge here pumping up north again and inflating into another area of high pressure through that first week of April. So that's how it's looking as we're going through the remainder of the month and into April. It looks like you're going to have a lot of dry weather to enjoy. It looks very pleasant, especially the early part of next week with temperatures into the mid to upper teens Celsius. Lots of dry and fine weather too. We might get a more unsettled interlude right at the very closing day or so of March into the opening day or so of April. I suspect through that first week of April, we'll probably get back to high pressure quite quickly. Right, it's JMA Friday tomorrow, so that will look in detail at the next month with CFS and Japanese models. And talking of JMA, don't forget to check out the free monthly update that we did this morning looking at April to June. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.